Today, we delve into the heartbreaking story of Jaycee Graham, an 18-year-old high school senior whose secret relationship with her coach led to her tragic and untimely death. Jaycee was a senior at Macon Central High School in Macon, Georgia. Jaycee was known for her infectious smile and vibrant personality. As the captain of the school's cheerleading squad, she had earned the role through years of dedication and hard work. Her friends and teammates remembered her as compassionate, always offering encouragement to those who struggled with their routines. Jaycee lived with her parents, Liz and Walt Graham, in a cozy suburban home just a short drive from downtown Macon. Her father, Walt, directed a local homeless shelter called Helping Hands, while her mother, Liz, worked as a real estate agent at a well-known agency in town. Jaycee also had an older brother, Zach, who was attending college out of state. On the surface, the family appeared picture-perfect, but those who knew Jaycee well suggested there were underlying tensions at home. Jaycee was using her accomplishments. Jaycee's personal life was anything but stable. For the past year, she had been secretly involved in a sexual relationship with her cheerleading coach, Nate Slater. This relationship was not only inappropriate but also illegal, given the power imbalance between them and the significant age difference. In the weeks leading up to her death, friends noticed that Jaycee appeared increasingly anxious. She confided in her best friend that she wanted to end things with Nate but was afraid of the consequences, especially after a recent pregnancy scare. During her free time, Jaycee enjoyed visiting River Crossing, a popular mall in Macon, where she would often grab an iced latte from Starbucks or shop for makeup at Sephora. Jaycee loved binge-watching Netflix shows like Stranger Things and The Office. Her Instagram was filled with photos of her in her cheerleading uniform, each post bursting with school spirit. Just days before her death, she had led her squad in a flawless routine at the school's final pep rally of the year, earning cheers from the crowd. She was also excitedly planning a summer trip to Tybee Island with her friends to celebrate their graduation. Jaycee had so much ahead of her, which made the events that followed even more heartbreaking. On the humid evening of June 4, 2019, the calm of a Tuesday night in Macon, Georgia, was shattered by a shocking discovery. Around 9:30 p.m., Marcus Hill, a Dollar Tree employee, was taking out the trash behind the store on Riverside Drive when he stumbled upon a sight he would never forget. At first, Marcus thought the shape lying near the dumpster was just discarded debris or a mannequin someone had carelessly thrown away. But as he got closer, he realized it was the lifeless body of a young woman. She was naked, bruised, and bloodied, with her blonde hair matted in dried blood. Panic surged through him as he stumbled backward, pulling his phone from his pocket to dial 911. "I just found a body," he told the dispatcher, his voice trembling. "She's not moving." "Oh my God, there's so much blood," Marcus said, his voice barely audible as he spoke to the dispatcher. The 911 call sent first responders rushing to the scene. Paramedics arrived and quickly confirmed the young woman was dead. Officers from the Macon-Bibb County Sheriff's Office arrived shortly after, sealing off the area as they began their investigation. The discovery sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community. People who had been shopping nearby stopped in their tracks, whispering and speculating as the blue lights from emergency vehicles flashed against the store's brick walls. Soon the body was identified as Jaycee Graham, a beloved senior at Macon Central High School. Jaycee's cheerleading teammates and classmates began hearing the devastating news through texts and social media posts. A tweet from a friend simply said, "R.I.P. Jaycee," while others expressed disbelief, asking, "How could this happen to her?" Investigators worked through the night, collecting evidence and documenting the scene. Jaycee's body showed clear signs of trauma, and the brutal nature of her injuries indicated that she had been bludgeoned to death. Officers found a blood-stained towel nearby, and detectives later remarked that the crime scene appeared hastily staged. Marcus Hill, still shaken by the experience, spoke to reporters saying, "I just couldn't believe it. That poor girl had her whole life ahead of her." His words echoed the feelings of a community now overwhelmed by fear and grief. The search for answers had just begun, but Jaycee's tragic death left Macon reeling. The Macon-Bibb County Sheriff's Office arrived shortly after Marcus Hill's 911 call on June 4, 2019, beginning their investigation into the horrific crime. Lead investigator Detective Carla Harris, a seasoned officer with 15 years of experience, quickly took charge of the case. Known for her no-nonsense demeanor and keen eye for detail, Harris began carefully surveying the area. The scene behind the Dollar Tree on Riverside Drive was chilling. Jaycee Graham's body lay sprawled on the ground, her injuries a clear sign of a violent attack. Blood pooled beneath her head, and her skull showed multiple fractures, consistent with blunt force trauma. Detective Harris observed the absence of clothing, which suggested a possible sexual assault, though no immediate evidence confirmed this theory. A blood-stained towel was found nearby, and detectives carefully bagged it as crucial evidence. Under the flashing police lights, forensic teams combed the area, photographing every detail and collecting samples. As they continued their work, investigators discovered tire marks leading away from the scene, suggesting that Jaycee's body had been moved and discarded. The lack of defensive wounds on her body suggested that Jaycee might have been unconscious when the fatal blows were delivered. As the investigation unfolded, detectives began to piece together Jaycee's life. Interviews with her family and friends revealed a portrait of a high-achieving, well-liked teenager, someone with a bright future ahead of her, tragically cut short. However, a shocking revelation soon surfaced. Jaycee had been involved in a secret affair with her cheerleading coach, Nate Slater, a 44-year-old former college athlete. Detective Harris and her team uncovered sexually explicit text messages and intimate photos on Jaycee's phone, retrieved through forensic software. These messages revealed a months-long sexual relationship between Jaycee and Slater, adding a disturbing layer to the investigation. The messages between Jaycee and Slater grew increasingly tense in the weeks leading up to her death, particularly after Jaycee's pregnancy scare. In one exchange, Jaycee confided her desire to end the affair, citing the emotional toll it had taken on her and the potential legal consequences. Slater's replies were desperate and manipulative, pleading with her to keep their secret and threatening the repercussions of exposing their relationship. The revelation of the affair brought an unexpected twist to the case. Investigators spoke with Slater, whose uneasy behavior and reluctant responses immediately raised concerns. His account didn't seem to match up. Harris later told reporters, "We knew he was hiding something." With this new development, the investigation took a more troubling direction. The team now needed to figure out if Jaycee's relationship with her coach played any role in her tragic death. Coach Nate Slater, 44, had been a well-respected figure at Macon Central High School, celebrated for turning a struggling cheerleading team into state champions. Known for his confidence and charm, Nate's polished reputation began to crumble when investigators uncovered his secret affair with Jaycee Graham. The relationship between Nate and Jaycee had started innocently during her senior year. As the cheerleading captain, Jaycee, who had just turned 18, frequently sought Nate's guidance to refine her routines and enhance her leadership abilities. Nate appeared to take a keen interest in her progress, regularly complimenting her talent and dedication. However, over time, their relationship began to blur the lines of professionalism. What began as after-practice pep talks soon escalated into sexually explicit text messages exchanged late at night. To keep their communication hidden, Nate and Jaycee used encrypted apps like Telegram. They communicated almost every day, and texts recovered by forensic analysts revealed graphic conversations, secret meeting plans, and exchanges of affection. The messages became more intimate, outlining secret encounters at secluded spots like the far corner of the school parking lot or local motels. Investigators uncovered receipts from a nearby Super 8 motel and surveillance footage showing Nate's car at unusual hours. Jaycee's friends later revealed they had noticed her becoming increasingly withdrawn. She frequently skipped social events, offering vague excuses about school obligations. Her cheerleading teammates remembered her checking her phone anxiously during practice, and one friend even caught her taking a nude selfie in a bathroom stall. However, no one ever suspected she was involved in a sexual relationship with their coach. As detectives dug further, they uncovered that Nate's relationship with Jaycee wasn't an isolated case. Rumors of inappropriate behavior had followed him throughout his career. At a previous school north of Atlanta, he had faced allegations of having sex with a student in the hallway, though the accusations were never proven. Nate had a history of forming close relationships with his athletes, often blurring professional boundaries. While some parents had raised concerns, nothing ever came of it, until now. During his interrogation, Nate seemed visibly uneasy. Detective Carla Harris, leading the interrogation, observed that Nate couldn't maintain eye contact. He insisted his relationship with Jaycee was strictly professional, but the evidence painted a different picture. When confronted with the recovered text messages, Nate began to stammer and shift uncomfortably in his seat. "I was just trying to help her. She needed guidance," he said. When questioned about his whereabouts on the night of Jaycee's murder, Nate claimed he was at home, but he couldn't offer any proof to back up his alibi. His phone records indicated movements that matched the location of Jaycee's body. For investigators, Nate's evasive behavior and history of questionable relationships created a troubling profile. With his unreliable alibi and a documented pattern of inappropriate conduct, police quickly identified him as a prime suspect. However, his exact role in Jaycee's tragic death remained uncertain, driving investigators to relentlessly pursue the truth. Elizabeth Liz Graham, 38, was well known in Macon, Georgia, for her sharp wit and polished image as a successful real estate agent. But beneath her confident exterior, Liz was facing personal struggles. Her marriage to Walt Graham, the respected director of a local homeless shelter, was falling apart. Walt's long hours and emotional distance left Liz feeling neglected and invisible. Seeking validation, Liz turned to the attention of strangers, engaging in anonymous encounters with dozens of people, all of which she kept hidden, even from her closest friends. When Liz learned of the rumored sexual relationship between her teenage daughter Jaycee and coach Nate Slater, she was outraged. While Liz claimed her anger was driven by a desire to protect Jaycee, investigators later uncovered that jealousy might have been a significant factor. Instead of reporting Nate or confronting him directly, Liz chose a different, more secretive approach. Liz reached out to Nate, pretending to want to discuss Jaycee, but their meeting quickly escalated into a physical relationship. For Liz, the affair was initially a way to exert control over Nate and make sure he stayed away from her daughter. What began as a calculated attempt to control Nate soon spiraled into a sexual obsession. Liz began showing up uninvited at Nate's doorstep, at times arriving completely naked. Neighbors would later recall seeing her car parked outside Nate's house late at night, often lingering into the early hours of the morning. In the days before Jaycee's murder, tensions between Liz and her daughter reached a breaking point. 2 days prior to the crime, the two had a heated argument in the parking lot of a Publix grocery store. Witnesses reported seeing Liz strike Jaycee with her large purse while shouting profanities. Casey stormed off, leaving Liz standing alone, angrily kicking the tire of an Audi SUV until she sprained her foot. On the night of Jaycee's death, Liz claimed she had been at home, binge-watching Queer Eye on Netflix. However, her alibi quickly fell apart when police discovered her fingerprints on a bloodstained towel found near Jaycee's body behind a Dollar Tree. The evidence pointed directly to Liz's presence at the scene. Text messages uncovered during the investigation revealed a disturbing dynamic between Liz and Nate. Liz became increasingly possessive, sending messages that hinted at her growing jealousy of Jaycee. In one chilling text sent hours before Jaycee's death, Liz warned Nate, "The bleak won't take what's mine." Liz's troubled marriage, her secretive sexual encounters, and her obsessive fixation on Nate painted a portrait of a woman losing control. For investigators, the pieces were falling into place, and Liz's behavior in the days leading up to Jaycee's death made her a prime suspect. The investigation into Jaycee Graham's murder took an unexpected turn when police uncovered a hidden side to Walt Graham, Liz's husband. At 58, Walt was known in Macon as a devoted director of Helping Hands, a shelter for the homeless. However, beneath his charitable facade, Walt was secretly running a dark and illegal operation. The police uncovered Walt's scheme while reviewing financial records connected to both his and Liz's accounts. What started as an investigation into Liz's alibi led to the discovery of questionable transactions related to Helping Hands. It turned out that Walt had been using the shelter as a cover to steal the identities of its homeless residents, many of whom were too vulnerable to defend themselves and lacked control over their personal information. Walt then sold these stolen identities to undocumented immigrants for sky-high prices. Those who refused to buy were met with harsh threats of arrest and deportation. However, Walt's deceitful actions didn't end there. Investigators soon uncovered that Walt was also profiting from selling drugs to the very people Helping Hands was meant to protect. He secretly bought methamphetamine and opioids, then sold them to the shelter's residents at inflated prices. Much like his identity theft operation, he manipulated and controlled them through fear, threatening to file false reports to law enforcement if they refused to buy. In a shocking twist, Walt wasn't just dealing drugs, he was using them too. Witnesses testified that he would often vanish for hours during the shelter's hours of operation, using cocaine and injecting meth, leaving the staff to manage everything in his absence. Later, police discovered clear evidence of drug use in Walt's private office, including syringes, pipes, and small bags of methamphetamine. The money he earned from these illegal activities supported a lifestyle that contradicted the humble persona he had portrayed. While Liz and Jaycee lived in a modest home, Walt had secretly rented a luxurious apartment in the upscale Buckhead neighborhood of Atlanta. Receipts revealed that Walt often indulged in expensive brands like Gucci and Nike, along with nights out at high-end restaurants and bars. His double life started to unravel when police connected his threats to Liz's increasingly unstable behavior. It soon became evident that Liz's obsession with Nate Slater and her tensions with Jaycee were deeply tied to the turmoil in her marriage to Walt. The community was left in shock when news of Walt's scheme spread. Helping Hands, once viewed as a sanctuary of hope, was now tainted by betrayal. Walt's crimes deepened an already heartbreaking case, leaving both investigators and residents wondering how such corruption could have stayed hidden for so long. As the investigation into Jaycee Graham's murder progressed, police uncovered a key detail that pointed to her father, Walt Graham. It was revealed that just weeks before her death, Jaycee had uncovered the darker side of her father's life. While volunteering at Helping Hands, the homeless shelter he managed, Jaycee came across disturbing evidence. One evening, Jaycee entered her father's office to drop off some paperwork and discovered a folder filled with personal information from the shelter's residents: social security numbers, birth certificates, and other sensitive documents. Driven by a strong sense of justice, Jaycee, a high school senior, confronted her father about what she had found. Walt brushed off her concerns, claiming the documents were simply part of the shelter's administrative work, but Jaycee wasn't convinced. Later, when she found syringes and small bags of powder in Walt's car, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. She realized her father was not only stealing identities, but also dealing and possibly using drugs. Jaycee confided in a close friend, telling her that if her father didn't stop, she planned to go to the police. She wanted to do what was right, the friend later shared with reporters. Investigators would eventually uncover evidence suggesting that Walt may have gone to shocking lengths to silence his daughter. Text messages retrieved from Walt's phone revealed conversations with an unidentified contact in which he discussed his problem with Jaycee. In one particularly chilling exchange, the contact assured Walt, "I'll take care of it. Just be ready to pay." Financial records also showed that Walt withdrew $10,000 in cash from a joint account with Liz just 2 days before Jaycee's murder. Surveillance footage from a nearby ATM captured Walt making the withdrawal late at night. He appeared nervous, frequently glancing over his shoulder as he withdrew the money. Investigators also discovered a burner phone in Walt's private office at Helping Hands. The phone contained messages with the same unidentified contact, including unsettling details about Jaycee's school schedule and after-school routine. Police believe these messages indicate that Walt hired someone to track and eventually kill his daughter. The suspicion grew when several residents of Helping Hands reported seeing Walt in a heated argument with an unfamiliar man outside the shelter the day before Jaycee's death. The man was described as tall, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, but no one could provide a clear identification. Although no direct link between Walt and Jaycee's murder was definitively proven, the evidence painted a damning picture of a father willing to protect his secrets at any cost, even if it meant sacrificing his own daughter's life. The motive behind Jaycee Graham's brutal murder appeared to stem from a toxic combination of jealousy and desperation. Liz Graham's emotional state had been steadily worsening for months. Her marriage to Walt had become increasingly strained, leaving Liz feeling more and more isolated. Initially, Liz's affair with Nate, Jaycee's coach, was an attempt to distance him from her daughter, but over time it turned into an obsession. Liz became consumed by the belief that Jaycee was threatening her relationship with Nate, and this belief only intensified her anger and resentment. Liz believed Jaycee had betrayed her in the worst possible way. She saw the growing bond between her daughter and Nate as not only a moral betrayal, but also a direct threat to her own secret relationship. This jealousy festered, slowly transforming into a violent, uncontrollable rage. On the night of June 4, 2019, Liz was consumed by a fit of rage. She spotted Jaycee outside a Dollar Tree store in their neighborhood, and the two women exchanged heated words. The confrontation quickly escalated when Liz confronted Jaycee about the affair, fueling her anger even more. Liz, already emotionally charged, felt a deep sense of betrayal. What began as a heated exchange quickly escalated into an all-out confrontation. Her anger surged, reaching a boiling point where she could no longer control her emotions. In the heat of the moment, Liz stormed back to her car and grabbed a hammer from the trunk. With her face twisted in pure rage, she turned back toward Jaycee. In a violent outburst, Liz began striking her daughter repeatedly with the hammer, her fury unleashing in a way she could no longer control. Jaycee fought to defend herself, but Liz's relentless rage kept the blows coming. In a frenzied state, Liz continued striking until Jaycee lay motionless on the cold pavement. Realizing her daughter was dead, Liz knew she had to stage the scene to make it appear as though the attack had been a random act of violence. In an effort to distance herself from the crime, Liz stripped Jaycee's body of all clothing and discarded it nearby. She meticulously positioned the body to make it appear as though the murder had been the result of a robbery gone wrong. However, Liz's careful planning quickly unraveled as investigators pieced together the evidence. Police found a strand of hair belonging to Liz on Jaycee's body, and DNA tests confirmed the connection. Soon after, Liz was arrested for her daughter's murder. The arrest came as a devastating shock to Liz, who was initially stunned and confused by the sudden turn of events. Liz couldn't believe how far her actions had gone, but as more evidence came to light, she slowly began to accept the grim reality of her situation. The police had gathered enough to charge her with first-degree murder, and there was no escaping the consequences of her actions. Liz had taken her daughter's life in a moment of uncontrollable jealousy and rage. In the months following her arrest for Jaycee's murder, her defense team began working on a strategy. They decided to pursue an insanity defense, claiming that Liz's actions were driven by severe emotional distress and mental instability. Liz's attorneys, the husband and wife team of Mark Thompson and Patricia Edwards, argued that she had been overwhelmed by the stress of her troubled marriage and her obsessive affair with Nate. They claimed that these factors culminated in a mental breakdown, causing her to lose control in the heat of the moment during the murder. During the trial, which began in February 2020, the defense presented evidence of Liz's unstable mental state, hoping to convince the jury that her actions were the result of her deteriorating emotional health. The defense called several expert witnesses, including a psychologist, who testified that Liz had been suffering from severe depression and anxiety. They argued that Liz had not fully understood the consequences of her actions and was incapable of making rational decisions when she killed Jaycee. The defense portrayed Liz as a woman who had snapped under the overwhelming weight of her emotional turmoil, suggesting that her mental state had been too fragile for her to comprehend the gravity of what she had done. The prosecution, represented by District Attorney Richard Langston, contended that Liz's actions were deliberate and carefully planned. They argued that she had a clear motive, her jealousy over her daughter's relationship with Nate, and that she had purposely staged the crime scene to mislead investigators. The prosecution called for the harshest possible sentence, insisting that Liz must be held responsible for the ruthless murder of her own daughter. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for just over a day before delivering their verdict. Liz was convicted of second-degree murder, a lesser charge than the more severe first-degree murder. The jury determined that while Liz had acted out of intense anger, she had not premeditated the crime, which led to the reduced charge. During her sentencing hearing in late February 2020, Liz faced up to 30 years in prison for the second-degree murder conviction. However, the judge chose to impose a 20-year sentence, taking into account Liz's mental health issues and the lack of premeditation in the crime. Liz's defense attorneys Thompson and Edwards expressed disappointment with the outcome, but announced plans to appeal, arguing that the sentence was overly severe considering Liz's mental state at the time of the murder. The case garnered significant media attention, particularly in Lexington, Kentucky, where the Graham family had previously lived. Many viewed Liz's actions as a tragic mix of emotional instability and jealousy, resulting in the heartbreaking loss of life. Following Liz Graham's conviction for the murder of her daughter Jaycee in February 2020, the impact of the crime reverberated through the lives of everyone involved. Liz was sentenced to 20 years in prison for second-degree murder and was transferred to a correctional facility in Kentucky to begin serving her sentence. In prison, she confronted the painful reality of being separated from her family while grappling with the emotional consequences of her actions. Although Liz had insisted that her affair with Nate and the turmoil in her life had driven her to the breaking point, she was forced to face the undeniable truth that she had taken the life of her own child. The tragic events stunned many local residents, and Liz's story made headlines throughout the state, igniting discussions about mental health and the complexities of family relationships. Meanwhile, Nate, the cheerleading coach who had become entangled in the scandal, lost his job at the local high school. The school board acted swiftly to sever ties with Nate, citing his inappropriate behavior with Jaycee. His personal life quickly became a public spectacle, and he found it difficult to secure employment in the same field. His reputation was irrevocably tarnished, and he faced widespread criticism for his involvement in the affair with Jaycee, as well as his relationship with Liz. Although Nate avoided criminal charges, his career and social life were left in tatters. By February 2020, he was working a minimum-wage job at a local McDonald's, a far cry from his former role as a respected coach. Meanwhile, Walt, Liz's husband and the mastermind behind the illegal identity theft operation, was arrested following an in-depth investigation into his business activities at the homeless shelter.